Hello and welcome back to the Lille Regional Championships. We've had to say goodbye to Joe, but hey, I got Benji back. Hi, Benji.
Hi, I'm glad to be back. I am ready for this top 8, and we have some really exciting stuff ahead for everyone.
Oh, it's going to be fun. And I was out there with a couple members of the crew trying to pick the top 8 game, and it was very awkward because there were assuming no ties, there was potentially 11 players that could get 31 or more points. It was very awkward. We do actually have our top 8 here. So we have got Fabien Pujol, Jamie Frankland, Owen Kammerman, of course we saw in the previous game, Filippo Calamero, Nico Alabas, Martin de Sombra, Lucas, and Fabio Battistella. So is there anyone you've seen on that list there that's kind of jumping out to you?
Well, I'll be honest. Earlier with Freya, I was sat here and we asked each other, what would you love to see in top 8? And I said, there is only one in day 2, and that is a Blissey V. And
oh, did it make
it? Jamie Franklin took it all the way this morning, all the way to top 8, and he is now up against Fabien Pujol. But just for a quick rundown of all the decks so everyone knows what's here, we've got Fabien Pujol versus Jamie Franklin. That is Origin Form Pelkia versus Blissey. We have Nico Alabas, Giratina V-Star Box versus Martin de Sombre, Kyram VMAX. Then we have Lucas Aruge Henrique that we had on earlier, Giratina V-Star again versus Fabio Battistella, apologies for that, Mew VMAX. And then Owen Kammerman, we just saw best his brother for the win and in with that Origin Form Pelkia versus Filippo Calamarea with Arceus V-Star, Giratina V-Star.
So we're basically talking free Giratina. We've got free Kyurem / Palkia, and we know that the builds are not always the same, but just for simplicity's sake for the moment. And then we've got a Blissey and we've got a Mew. In terms of countries, there's only one country which is represented twice. I'm going to say that's Italy. Tell me my flags are right, Benji.
Yes, it is indeed. Italy there, definitely.
And then we have one Brit remaining, of course, 2 British casters, but there will be no favouritism here because, of course, Jamie is going to be playing against Fabien Pujol, who is a homegrown player in Lille. And we've spoken to Fabien a few times this weekend, actually. Fabien's been quite involved in the production. We were chatting with them on, I think, Friday morning before the tournament even started. So lots of good players, lots of good decks, and just waiting for confirmation as to, have you been told, do we know what the match is?
The match.
I don't believe we've had confirmation of the players. They are setting up here. Just waiting to get confirmation.
Oh, it's Fabien versus Jamie Kammerman. It's Blissey V versus the Pelkia.
Ah, I recognise Fabien's V-Star marker, actually, now you come to say it.
It was a sticky note yesterday. He has upgraded to a nice piece of lined paper. Still written in that same blue pen. And, of course, we have another particularly nice Ricky Martin V-Star on the other side of the table.
I am kind of loving the how interesting some of these V-Star markers are. At the EUIC, I saw somebody with the really fancy Japanese 25th anniversary gold playmat. This really fancy playmat. And the V-Star marker was a scrap of paper with V-Star written on it. I love things like that.
Yeah, it is absolutely brilliant when it comes into contrast. Looking at Jamie Frankland here, prizes already set. Fabien giving him a mulligan to start off, but a DTE, an important special energy, a Miltank there, an Avery Hyper Potion for that healing, and of course Cheren's Care being able to pick up that Blissey and fully heal it along with the powerful energy. A nice mix of cards there for Jamie, but I don't think he's going to be too upset by any of them, playing multiples of them all.
Yeah, we're looking for, like we said earlier, we're looking for, if anyone's wondering what we're looking for, we're looking at prizes, cards that the player only plays one of, cards where multiple copies of them are prized, and particularly useful cards in the particular matchup. Fabien is only playing Palkia as his attacker. He's prized 2 Palkia V, now is playing a 4-3 line, so there are still 2 left in the deck, and has actually started with 1, but you're trying to set up multiple attackers. That is not a great start. Jamie, however, what have we got? Is that a powerful colourless energy?
Powerful colourless and a cape of toughness.
No cups here. We're all cape all the time. And that Blissey is starting to look very imposing very quickly.
Yeah, of course. Blissey, for those who don't know, it does a base 10 damage and then 60 more for each energy on it. But at the end of using that attack, Ross, a really exciting thing happens. 3 more special energy from the discard pile get to be attached to it, making it powerful every time you use the attack, it adds more energy, and at some points it can get really overwhelming for the opponent.
And it's kind of working out a little bit like the Reggie deck here, where one of your goals in the early game is just to try and pile special energy into the discard, because yeah, sure, you can attach them manually. Who has the fun in that? Whereas, would you rather attach one manually or 3 from the discard? The answer is, of course, both, but it's still nice to get that extra energy from the discard. Blissey is one of those Pokemon, if you have a fast start with this deck and your opponent doesn't check you, you win every time.
Of course, and I'm just correcting myself there. I said 60 for each energy. I definitely meant 30, of course.
That's all right.
Just thinking of DTE in my head there. That's 2 for 1, just going straight for the 60. But yeah, Blissey, 10 plus 30 for each energy, and of course attaching 3 energy cards from your discard pile every time you attack. And it seems that Jamie got a little bit of what he wanted on that first turn, the quick ball for the DTE, getting another Blissey down, making sure that this one doesn't come under too much threat in the active. However, it does currently have 300 HP, and then the special energy in there ready to be charged up on the following turn.
Yeah, we've talked this weekend about the vast majority of Pokemon V having up to 220 HP. Blissey, as you would expect from Blissey, if you know the Pokemon video games, Blissey goes up to 250 HP. It is huge. Now, Fabien does use an Irida there, goes for a Drizzile and a Battle VIP pass. The Drizzile obviously no good this turn, but clearly going for it next turn, thinking Jamie's not going to be disrupting my hand, or at least I hope Jamie's not going to be doing so. And you know what? What I really need is just to have something for next turn, and I can get it with a Irida now, or I can hope to get it next turn. It's not the same.
Yeah, of course. Those Drizziles going to be key in this matchup. We know that unlike we've seen a lot today, that Radiant Greninja running riot a lot, being able to snipe Sobbles on the bench, sometimes seeing them not played down, sometimes played down very awkwardly and not in the right amounts. However, Blissey, no chance to be able to do that, and Fabien looks like he plays down a pass to the peak. Jamie a little bit keen then, grabs a card off the top of his deck, not yet looked at it, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem, and going back into Fabian's turn.
Yeah, it's not bad at all, just using that. I mean, you don't really want to search out a stadium, but it's not too bad. We do have Blissey here, and I don't think we're going to get a KO with this Blissey, but what we can do is do real relevant damage. And one of the themes we've seen from Palkia in this tournament and before, it can really struggle to get up to those large... Oh, speaking of which, we do have hand disruption. Jamie does play 2 copies of Marnie, and it's not just a stadium, it's the Drizzile that Fabien went and took from the Irida there. So, to get back to my original point, that Blissey, high HP, with the Cape of Toughness as well, and Palkia can really struggle to take out those bigger Pokemon, especially when you bear in mind, Blissey is one of the decks in the format that is best at rocking a very small bench.
Yeah, of course. Typically speaking, you're only going to see 1 or 2 Blissey, maybe a Miltank in those matchups where it's useful and your opponent can't get through it. Jamie just quickly asking to see what was discarded. Not much there, just a VIP pass and a quick ball by the looks. And of course, that Greninja coming down, ready to start discarding those energy. The great thing about Greninja, you often see only basic energy being used with Greninja, but it can be any energy. So these special energy, easy to get in the discard with Radiant Greninja and drawing 2 more cards.
Yeah, most decks do not want to discard the special energy. Regigigas does, but they're forced into playing all 6 Regis. So, although it's a really fun interaction, Blissey's about the only deck around that can really take advantage of it. But we do see it going in the discard now, and then Blissey is going to hit for...
70, I think. 100?
So we had the 10 base, plus...
Powerful for 20 more, then 30 from the DTE, another 30, and then minus 20.
So what are we saying? Was there free energy on when he attacked?
Yes.
Yes, there's free energy on, and you've basically got the powerful colorless energy adds 20, double turbo energy minuses 20, so you ignore them both, and it is just 10 plus 3 times 30, which is 100.
And then, of course, that charge up of the energy from the discard, and we've gone from 3 all the way to 6 in the blink of an eye, and Jamie's Blissey now looking ever more threatening, 100 already on that Palkia V, and it's definitely going to go down next turn, and this Blissey is able to go again. And the Drizzile, Fabien able to get into another one off the back of that Marnie, finding himself an Irida again, getting that Capacious Bucket, 2 water energy, and I think the Greninja is going to be using concealed cards here.
And one interesting thing, of course, with Blissey is, yes, on the one hand, you can just build up that energy and one-hit KO anything, but when you've got lots of double energy on, that Hyper Potion becomes so good. Discarding 2 energy, healing 120, you love to see it.
Yeah, that Hyper Potion. An interesting card. I think Max Potion back in the day was one of the best ones. Using it on things really cheekily that don't use much energy, being able to discard all that and heal completely. But Hyper Potion, as you said, DTE counts 2 in 1, only having to discard one to use 100 to discard it and then heal 120 damage off that Blissey, making it ever more tanky. And the Palkia here has attacked again and done a significant amount of damage to this Blissey. And we pass over to Jamie, who can seal cards, the capture energy, draws 2, and then is counting up his math to see if he can get through this Palkia.
Yeah, I think it was 180 there, 6 bench Pokemon, 120 plus the 60 base, and I think I would love to see a Hyper Potion here. There is a chance that Fabien could get a KO next turn, but unfortunately, you know, well, as it stands at the moment, it seems like Jamie will be KO'd next turn. Oh, we don't have a Hyper Potion, so we do have a huge amount of damage coming down. But this has opened the door for Fabien here. Because in theory, I mean, that Blissey's down to 120 HP remaining. We could see a KO.
Yeah, we definitely could. 130, not a lot for the Palkia to hit. Obviously, it's already got quite a sizable bench. Jamie's got 2 Pokemon down, so it's not going to be overly difficult for the Palkia to go for it here. But playing down the Evo Incense early in this turn, looking for that Inteleon. 2 trainer cards of choice going into hand. One of them looking to be the Scoop Up Net here. And we'll have to see what else Fabien opts to go for.
Yeah, Scoop Up Net's always or that Evolution Incense, always a good choice. We're getting the Inteleon there, which is lovely. And yeah, just Scoop Up Net, and it looks like a Melanie as well we're going to be getting. And it kind of has to be a Melanie, of course, because there's no energy on the Palkia. Yes, you can use your V-Star power, but as we've talked about a few times on the stream, you don't want to use your V-Star power just to get 2 energy on a Palkia. That is not a good use of your V-Star power. Your V-Star power should be used for a Surprise Greninja, Surprise Crabominable, depending on what you're actually playing in the deck. Fabien's not playing Crabominable. But using Melanie to attach to 1 energy and then attaching for the turn, saving that V-Star power for the future, always a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. So here comes that Evolution Incense. Gee whiz, I'm fairly sure this is going to be a Palkia V-Star.
Yeah, I think it just might be. Obviously, that V-Star needed to do any sort of significant damage for 2 energy to this Blissey this turn. Obviously, Palkia V needing 3 just to be able to attack. That Melanie setting up the 2 energy really, really nicely. And Fabien is going to get off that desired attack. You just need to add up the mass here. So it's 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160. So 160 damage at the minute. Fabien's going to have to get down a couple more basics at the minute to get that attack off, I believe. Opting for the Capacious Bucket, getting 2 more water.
Yeah, that Capacious Bucket, I mean, firstly, the name of that card is amazing. I'm pretty sure it is what's taught the majority of the Pokemon community what the word capacious means. It's not a word I was terribly familiar with before that card came out, and I don't think I'm alone here. But it's also really good for grabbing that water energy. Sometimes you discard it with Greninja, sometimes you attach it, and it's just, you want energy on the board, you want it in the discard. Oh, I love this! We saw a Scoop Up Net on the Inteleon, and then a Rare Candy into the Chilling Rain Inteleon, so you can start dropping those damage counters, because Fabien knows he's going to have to try and get through that Blissey, and it is not going to be easy.
No, it's definitely not. And of course, that Palkia able to take the knockout there with the amount of bench Pokemon available, going straight through it. And of course, placing 2 onto the Blissey now at the back, making that a little bit softer. It does have a cape as well, so up to 300, down to 280 now. And Jamie Frankland is going to need to get a couple more energy on this Blissey before it's at all threatening. Only up to 30 damage with the powerful energy. But he opts to Trekking Shoes first. Powerful energy already in hand. Is he going to discard that or keep it? I think it belongs in the discard zone for now. And obviously drawing another card with Trekking Shoes. A really nice inclusion, Trekking Shoes. Reminds me a lot of Acrobike. Yeah. But I really used to like Acrobike back in the day. And I think it was a really nice inclusion to the format.
No, it's really good for decks. For more straightforward decks, it's really, really good. It's kind of like 4 free slots in the deck where all you're doing is using those slots to get you towards other cards. It's kind of borderline playing a 60 card, it's like a 56 card deck, and those Trekking Shoes are just there to get you closer to what you actually want. Sometimes you don't want 60 cards. With Blissey, it's a pretty straightforward deck. You want your Cape of Toughness, you want your Energy, you want your Greninja. And we did just see here a Boss's Orders onto a Sobble. I really like this from Blissey because it means you're getting a KO while building up. And we see Blissey takes a turn or two to get going. I really like the idea of taking out a Sobble and then KOing a Palkia next turn. That's really nice.
Yeah, I really like that Team Yell banner there as well. Healing 50 from both active Pokemon, but obviously no damage on that Sobble, and the 50 not relevant anyway. Blissey able to get through it. And of course, that attack doing exactly enough. 70 damage there, and then drawing 3 out of the discard, attaching them to that Blissey. And of course, we haven't talked about that Lucky Energy yet, Ross. A really cool include in this deck. When attacked by a Pokemon that does damage to you, draw a card for each one attached.
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. It's weird. You've got a couple different ones at the moment. One draws to 7 when you get KO'd. One just draws a card when you get attacked. But the goal here is essentially, because you're not being KO'd, then you should just be able to get attacked, draw a card, get attacked, draw a card. We've not seen Jamie really playing around with healing yet in this deck. That's something I would like to see him playing around with a little bit more. I mean, to be fair, he can afford to play the 2-hit KO game here. And I kind of like getting a Sobble because it's basically 3 prizes over 2 turns. If you can 1-hit KO the Palkia afterwards, we're going to have to do some maths on this in a minute.
The Palkia at the minute doing 140 damage. Obviously, with that Sobble coming down, it takes it up to 160 as well, putting it in 2-shot range. We did previously have that quick shooting placed on the Blissey, healed off by the Team Yell banner. And obviously the Palkia coming down now. We're going all the way up to 180 damage now. Echoing Horn, 200 damage.
Yeah, we're still miles away. Fabien knows he's not getting a KO, but this is one of those situations you're expecting your opponent to Hyper Potion. You're expecting them to heal off 120 damage. So what you're basically doing is trying to get as much damage remaining after the Hyper Potion comes down. I mean, if Jamie doesn't Hyper Potion, brilliant, KO next turn. But you're trying to make sure that if Jamie does Hyper Potion, you're getting as close as you possibly can to getting that KO, so that what you don't want to do is like hit for 140, heal 120, hit 140, heal 120.
Of course, you see a very similar scenario in that Mewtwo V-Union deck, don't you? Able to heal 200, it's the attackers that are able to do a sizable amount more than that are slowly able to chip away that huge barrier. And it's a very similar story here to Fabien, making sure to maximize every attack, which is forcing Jamie to, have to find more than just a Hyper Potion maybe sometimes to be able to heal enough damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we do see this one's quite a nice one. So we've got an Avery coming down here. Draws 3 cards but forces your opponent down to a free Pokemon bench. Actually chooses to lose the Radiant Greninja. And sure, a bunch of value has come down from the Radiant Greninja, but this is still something you don't really want to lose. There comes that double Hyper Potion.
And that is exactly what we were talking about, Ross. Jamie is going to need more than just 1 Hyper Potion to get around that attack for the 2-shot, and he does.
Yeah, and Fabien, you've got to give some props to Fabien here, playing beautifully around this, trying to make sure there's enough damage on that 1 Hyper Potion just won't be able to fix it. And then Jamie goes, well, if 1 Hyper Potion won't do the job, how about 2? And now we're in a situation where Fabien can not KO the Blissey, and Jamie can then take 2 prizes and go to 1 prize remaining with some really tasty single prize Pokemon on the bench. Does Jamie have Gusting available to him? Because if so, we could be 2 turns away from a Blissey win here.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with this Blissey deck. It does such high damage, and of course, stopping itself from being KO'd as well. It can really remain a large threat on board. And the best part with discarding those energies with a Hyper Potion is Blissey's able to just charge them straight back up after it attacks, making it just as scary going into the next turn.
Yeah, so you still, you drop 4 energy, but then you immediately just reattach. Well, potentially you can actually attach 6 energy when you bring in the free double turbo. So you can double Hyper Potion and attach more energy than you even discarded in the first place.
Yeah, and Fabien now trying to figure out a way to make sure that he's able to take that final knockout. Obviously, he's going to have to keep putting pressure on this active Blissey, but he's going to have to use a lot of resources to do that in the first place, and I'm just not quite sure if there's a way to get round 2 in this matchup.
No, it's so awkward. I mean, essentially, Fabien's route here is trying to make sure Jamie doesn't draw well, but it is a very straightforward deck when you're just going aggro Blissey, which means that, and I don't say that as an insult, I say that as it works, because it's just attach energy, discard energy, attack and attach the energy, it means that you don't get those bad starts a lot of other decks do. There's a lot to be said for consistency. Or you've just got to hope that Jamie whiffs the Hyper Potion and you can get big 2-hit KOs. And that's clearly where Fabian's going here. But the problem is, you've kind of got to go through 3 Blissey to win the game. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Fabien able to get through one effectively early on, but again, mentioning he had to use quite a lot of resources for that. These Sobbles are going to have to cherry pick him exactly what he needs, and as you said, Ross, he couldn't have said it any better. We've got to try and stop Jamie from drawing well, is what's the thought on Fabian's mind. If he can't hit those Hyper Potions, can't hit these heals, these 2 shots will be enough, but of course, without them, he's going to fall.
Yeah, unfortunately so. There was 200 damage coming down off that Palkia here, which is obviously a lot, but it's not actually really enough at this stage, unfortunately. So, yeah, this is not ideal at all here. So what we've kind of got over on Jamie's side of the board, we've got actually 2 Blissey there, so don't need to bench any more Pokemon really for the entire game. And it looks like we're considering playing an... Is that another Avery there? Yeah, it seems to be another Avery there. Of course, there are some decks against which something like an Avery to limit your opponent's bench is particularly good. Things like Palkia that really wants to have high bench, high bench usage. Things like your Regigigas and needs to have all of those Gigas out. These are the decks where Avery is really designed to cause maximum annoyance.
Yeah, of course. And I think against Palkia, it's maybe not maximum annoyance, but they definitely do want options down of Sobbles, perhaps that Radiant Greninja that we had earlier on. So Jamie sort of limiting those options. Fabien only able to keep a couple of things down to be able to hit the cards he needs. And, of course, another Hyper Potion here, taking that damage away from Palkia. And I think it is Blissey time here. It is powering through. The healing Pokemon is no longer healing. It is damaging instead. And these Palkias are falling victim to it.
Yeah, that's literally the opposite of healing. It's a little bit rude. But we are going to see a KO here with Blissey. And I mean, it's not that awkward situation where there is going to be a KO. Literally as simple as that. There's going to be a KO on that Palkia. Benji needs to get a KO on this Blissey right now, or the game is over. Yes, I was just waiting to see. I thought Jamie had to take 2 prizes, just making sure that was happening. It absolutely is. So I'm not counting that Blissey's getting a KO. Just take my word for it. But now we see with the Palkia, can Fabien get to a KO? I can't see how much damage is on the Blissey. It's somewhere around 100?
Somewhere around, I think 200 damage was done. Around 200 was done, 120 heals. So I think we're at 100 or just below. However, the important thing to note here, Ross, is that Blissey, it doesn't matter what Fabien does this turn, unless he brings it down, it is able to run right through whatever is and is active. Enough energy there to knock out anything on Fabien's side of the board.
Oh, yeah, no, I just said I'm not doing the maths on that Blissey. I refuse to. There's a lot of energy. That is good enough for me. The eye test says that Blissey is doing enough, and I'm relying on that. Now, as it stands at the moment, assuming Fabien gets the V-Star, you're doing 160 as it stands at the moment, which is not going to be enough. Remember that Blissey, as with the first one, does have that Cape of Toughness. So we're talking about a 300 HP Blissey. So Fabien needs to do somewhere in the region of 200, 220, I believe. As it stands, we're hitting 160. Now, Fabien could actually get up to 220 just by filling his bench. That would do, and I think that would be a KO. I can't exactly see the amount of damage on Blissey, but I think we would get a KO. So if Fabien can fill his bench, that's going to be amazing. But as well as having the KOs from Jamie, we have seen a couple of Avery, and that discards Pokemon from your bench, and there comes a point where you just don't have more Pokemon to bench.
The Palkia V as well, having an attack that does 200 damage for 3 energy as well. So that's our 200 he needs. Maybe a quick shooting that has already gone as the bench Blissey, but maybe that would have been able to get through. And Fabien hits into the Blissey, and is that a knockout? Yes, it is. That 200 damage, enough to clean it up. So obviously 100 damage on there exactly. That Blissey having 300 maximum HP. And Jamie starts his turn. Fabien down to 2 prizes. And Jamie bosses orders for the first game of this top 8. Moving forward, that Blissey coming all the way from sort of the bottom of our day 2 rankings all the way into top 8 and continuing its run.
Yeah, that's a thing of absolute beauty, and that is why I loved Jamie taking that KO on the Sobble with Blissey earlier. Firstly, I love being able to take a KO on a little Pokemon while building up my Blissey for the big KOs, but secondly, that gave you a slightly uneven prize map. You KO'd the 2 Palkia, and then you're in a situation where, who needs to do 200 damage? I just need a boss's orders to KO that Sobble, and Jamie takes a pretty convincing game 1.
Yeah, I think that Jamie didn't really run into any roadblocks there. He seemed to draw his healing at exactly the right times, making that Palkia have to even 3 shots sometimes to get through it. And of course, that crucial turn where he hit 2 of those Hyper Potion, healing everything that Fabien put into his turn and set it back down to 0.
Yeah, that was very, very well played. Of course, Fabien, we've been following the story all weekend. You know, we interviewed him on Friday at a random little flat in the middle of Lille, which was very lovely, incidentally. We played that interview already. It was very, very nice to catch up with Fabien before the event. Of course, we know that Fabien is a local player from Lille. We know that he works in a local card shop, and I'm sorry, but Pokemon players working in card shops, that makes me happy. I love local card shops. They are the absolute lifeblood of the Pokemon community. And then, you know, we heard about the misfortune of having a car broken into right before the tournament.
Of course.
Which, you know, it's a horrible thing to happen. But then having this run all the way to top 8, Fabien has had a very good tournament. Now the question is, can Fabien make a comeback in this matchup? Because that needs to happen, or else, unfortunately, Fabien will stop at top 8. But Jamie, our compatriot, will be going on to top 4 with just 1 more win.
Yeah, Jamie Frankland as well. Quite funny here. He's got very, very similar prizes that he had last time. He has a Hyper Potion there, a Cheron, the one-off Miltank as well, and I think a Cape and Blissey this time to add the difference. But this Miltank can be a little bit awkward for the Palkia to get around in the early game. Obviously, those Inteleon, difficult to set up without using Star Portal. It's 2 separate attachments, and sometimes Fabien may be forced to fill up his bench a little bit. So Route, not actually a bad attack in the early game.
No, have a bit of a play with Miltank. Why not? Who doesn't love some Miltank? But honestly, for Jamie here, you just want to kind of do what you did last game. I'd like to see, you know, if possible, and it's not always possible, but trying to get those little KOs with Blissey, so you're taking prizes while building Blissey up. But really, the onus here is on Fabien. The onus is on Fabien to find something else, some different way. And we saw in that first game, there was a real struggle with Fabien trying to get to the stage where they could actually get a one-hit KO on that Blissey. And it's a real problem. And you've got to think, you know, if we look at Jamie's record, we're talking about 10-3-1. Jamie scraped into top 8. Jamie did not blister him. It was kind of coming in as one of the lower seeds in day 1, coming in as one of the lower seeds here. But taking 3 losses, but it's the deck you play because it's got some really good matchups. You're probably punting a few, but there are a few really good matchups. And you've got to think Palkia is one of those ones Jamie feels really good about.
Yeah, I think that we saw Blissey V when it won the American Regional, obviously being posed because it knew that Palkia wasn't able to take those big knockouts. We talked about it a couple of times. Palkia has a lot of strength in this format, being able to cherry pick those cards, consistent damage, that Star Portal, but its damage is quite capped. 230 with a ban, the most it can do, 250 with a ban and a snipe, and that is not enough to KO any Blissey with a Cape of Toughness on it.
No, unfortunately, it is not. So we do see the Radiant Greninja coming down on Jamie's side of the board. We do have that Blissey already with a Cape of Toughness attached. But Miltank is actually getting ready to go here. We got the powerful colorless energy. So it does look like we're actually going to see like a genuine Miltank attacking. Mostly because, I don't know, I started with that and I don't want to have to get it out the active.
I think Miltank needs 1 more energy to be able to attack, a DCE cost on that, and we are actually in Fabien's turn, and Irida played down, Inteleon going to hand with the rare Candy. Fabien utilizing that twice now. As I just said, it's difficult for this Inteleon to be attacking early in the game. Fabien proving me completely wrong, going straight for that rare Candy, getting a second attachment, I imagine, at some point this turn. An Aqua Bullet, 120 damage, not enough to kill this Miltank, but it will take it down to 30 HP and then put 20 on the bench.
Yeah, that's going to do very nice, getting the damage onto that Miltank. And of course, you know, Miltank does extra damage based on the number of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And that's kind of hilarious because against Palkia, that means that they want to fill their bench to do more damage, but if they fill their bench, you're doing more damage to them, and that's brilliant. That's very, very good. I like this.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like it a lot, especially because it sets up other knockouts as well. You need to get the extra damage down onto that Blissey on the bench, making sure that you're able to get those 2 shots into 1 shots at some point during the game. And then, of course, pushing forward, being aggressive. Fabien needs to utilize this game really early on, otherwise it's going to get out of his hands again.
Yeah, and you don't want that to happen, not when you've already lost game 1. So, you know what? It's so awkward for Fabien. We saw this game, we saw it rolling in the first round, and it's honestly a case of what can you do differently. Now, we do see Jamie, and Jamie's play here very similar to what we saw in the first game. Discarding a card with Greninja, that's lovely, and then getting an energy onto Miltank, that's lovely. It's not going badly for Jamie. It's a little bit different, of course, because you are building up the Miltank rather than building up the Blissey, but if Miltank can actually go and KO that Inteleon, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, I think route 10 damage plus 20 more for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. He's going to have to get a couple more down now in order to do this. Obviously, posing a different threat than the first game. Jamie, the game went a certain way with all the Bliss. He's hitting all the cards he needed, but it doesn't look like this game he's been able to do that thus far, hitting some awkward things and only being able to charge at the Miltank, and that Inteleon able to go through it straight away.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you're going for here. You're trying to just get that damage on. It's kind of unfortunate. Like, the Inteleon really wanted to KO the Miltank and just fell a bit short. And then the Miltank really wanted to KO the Inteleon, but then just fell a little bit short. And we're supposed to have, like, Blissey and Palkia, these 2 behemoths smashing into each other. And then instead we got, like, Miltank and Inteleon just kind of, like, poking each other in the face really gently.
And I think the best part is as well is this Inteleon's going to finish this off, but had it come to it, that Miltank not being able to get into a range of 2-shot, we would have seen this go on for a little bit longer. But the Inteleon able to do a bit more damage, 120 each time, and then another 20 placed on the Blissey, bringing that down, almost cancelling out the cape altogether. But right now we're looking at an Irida, Fabien going into hand, searching again for an item card and a water Pokemon.
Yeah, and we see this time and time again. Oh, look, it's a Capacious Bucket. Irida for Capacious Bucket for those 2 water energy is something we have seen over and over again. It's one of our favorite little tricks here because you need energy to attach, you need energy to discard with Radiant Greninja. And actually, we need to give a shout out to Fabien there for just controlling the bench well enough that Blissey was not more of a threat. So Fabien playing this really, really well. We've got a slower start to the game here, not a single prize taken yet. But what we have is basically 2 players kind of trying to feel out the game, trying to set up here. And it's a little disappointing for Jamie, because Jamie's gone and lost that Miltank, and you're a few turns into the game, you've not taken a KO, and Blissey has no energy on. Now, one of the bonuses here is that Blissey can attach a single energy, and that's Powerful Colorless Energy, will then get a KO on the Inteleon while building energy up onto itself. So this is kind of what I like seeing from Jamie, what I talked about before, this whole idea of taking a KO while building the energy up onto yourself, getting ready to, well, smash.
Yeah, and that's exactly Blissful Blast, definitely in the name of the game. That Blissey being able, as he said, to knock out that Inteleon now, but not only that, charging itself. It would be really nice here for Jamie to get any sort of heal on the Blissey to make sure he's just a little bit further out of that range of the Palkia. Obviously, his bench quite small right now, and Fabien has to do a little bit of work to get through it, but it is a little bit susceptible. There's 40 damage on it currently, only 260 HP.
Yeah. That is not necessarily ideal. I mean, we've seen Fabien's got all kinds of tricks. There's a Drizzile on board for Fabien, which could turn into one of those Inteleon, which can, use that quick shooting, get a bunch of extra damage down. We know that Fabien does play a single copy of Choice Belt, and we know the Choice Belt isn't prized. So there is a chance here, and we do see that Inteleon being eyed up with that Irida and the Choice Belt. It's like Fabien's listening to me. I can assure you all he is not. We do have those headphones for a reason, but we do have the Choice Belt and that Inteleon potentially coming down, and Fabien is going to try and fill the bench, get that quick shooting Inteleon, get the big cheeky KO on the Blissey, Blissey, and this is Fabian's route to victory here. Basically, giant improbable KOs, finding those opportunities like we see here, where like, hey, there's a little bit of damage on the Blissey, attack!
And I can guarantee you all, if Fabien could hear us, he'd be doing the complete opposite of what he said, so there is absolutely no debunk there. But Fabien, as he said, playing this really well, that extra ping there from the Inteleon, doing exactly what it needs to do, getting through that Blissey. And Ross, it's really important to know, Jamie's board not looking anywhere near as good this time, not a second Blissey. He's going to have to try and find one, play it down, but again, he's only going to have that one energy attachment on it by playing it down that turn, meaning that it's not going to be doing any sort of significant damage. And
it's not just the Blissey you need, really you need the Blissey, and you need the pivoting option, and you need the energy, and you need the Cape of Toughness, but it does not look like Fabien was able to fill up his bench, and that does mean that Blissey is, now those dice are not doing us a huge amount of favours in terms of the damage. The one thing we do know is that Blissey has survived, and now we see the Hyper Potion, and double Hyper Potion all the way across the sky. They're both going away there, and that is 200, that's all the damage. All the damage has gone and been healed off there, and that is so gutting for Fabien, because you got the Inteleon, you got the choice bout, you did the 60 ping beforehand. That was a turn where Fabien was supposed to be rolling, and it did not work, and now Jamie is looking in a very good position. The timing of the Hyper Potion here is one of the key factors really in the outcome of this matchup. If Jamie hits Hyper Potion at the right time, Fabien's job becomes so much more difficult. But if Jamie doesn't hit the Hyper Potion, Fabien can just chill and 2-hit KO. And as long as you're taking out the Blissey in a vaguely timely fashion, it doesn't matter if you're 2-hit KOing, because Blissey takes a few turns to build up to those big 1-hit KOs. If you can 2-hit KO Blissey, it'll 2-hit KO you, you can jump ahead in the prize race, and you can win this thing. But those Hyper Potions coming down when they do, it really can be a determining factor in this matchup.
Yeah, of course, Jamie doing that twice now, 2 in the first game and 2 in the second game. Blissey going back home to the Pokemon Center, healing itself completely. And as we said, Ross, coming down, not having many energy on it, it wouldn't be able to do significant damage, but we're in a position now where Blissey is still in that 2-shot zone you were just talking about, and I think Blissey is definitely the one that would prefer to be 2-shotting here.
Oh, love this.
At risk of not being able to hit it, and the boss comes down. As you said, love this. The Blissey putting extra pressure on now, able to get a squishier target for itself, and can Jamie take full advantage of this?
So what have we got? There's so much maths to do with Blissey. I tell you what, let's let the players do it. It's going to be 120, I think. No, 140. There's two powerful colorless energy. Are there? Yes, I think there's 2 powerful colorless energy. So you've got 100 for the free energy, plus 40 for the powerful colorless energy. And this is actually a lovely amount of damage, because that is, of course, exactly half of a Palkia V-Star's HP, which means if you can do that again, even if Fabien is able to get the V-Star, nothing fun will happen. This is good.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if only your old job of a maths teacher could see you now doing that on the fly. It's going well. They might be giving you a call tomorrow. And as we can see, Jamie's Blissey, again, looking really threatening there. Able to do enough damage to that Palkia V to set it in a bad way. Obviously not going to be able to attack with that confidently without it going down on the following turn. Jamie's starting to look a bit better again. We've got to remember, Fabien has stuck around in this game a little bit longer than the last one, so we'll have to see what he can do here to pull it back in his direction. We see the Irida come down, a water energy coming out of deck.
I'm going to be honest with you, Benji. I'm not loving Fabien's position here. The problem is, I just told you, you need to be 2-hit KO in the Blissey before all the big damage goes on. Jamie has the dream of every Blissey player, an undamaged Blissey with 7 energy? 7 energy on there.
Covered it right as you went to say that as well. Really awkwardly.
I know, like, come on, Jamie, do us a little bit of a favour here. But we have got 7 energy on there. We do have a double turbo, reducing it by 20. But I think we got 3 powerful colourless energy, maybe even 4?
Yeah, 4 colourless, powerful energy.
So we got 21, 22. I think we're hitting 300 now. I think Jamie is 1-hit KO and a V-Star at this stage.
Yeah, that is great.
Fabien can't get a one-hit KO, and spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure he can't, then that means that this Blissey is just going to take 4 prizes in a row. So Jamie can now actually start attaching to a bench Blissey, knowing that you've got enough energy on the active, and basically setting up for what we saw at the end of the last game, which is a little boss's orders to take that last prize. So does Fabien now just try and get that Drizzile into an Inteleon and leave it, just to at least make it slightly more difficult? Or do you just kind of play the game out like you usually would? It's an awkward situation, and I'm just not loving Fabien's position here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Even if that Drizzile does become an Inteleon, there is the option to obviously be able to start Aqua Bulleting again, so Jamie only takes 1 prize at a time, but I think that damage cap is still the problem here. We've talked about it so much this weekend. Palkia really struggles to get those big hits in. Fabien gonna try and go for a cross-switcher play here, so maybe attack something with a little bit less HP, maybe that 250 Blissey on the bench or the Greninja, but to be honest with you, I think his options are really limited here. Jamie's threat of the Blissey with all those energy is still going to be ever present no matter what Fabien does on this turn. The cross-switcher now straight into the bench Blissey for 250 HP on that one. And I believe Palkia will be able to do this in 1 hit now.
So what have we got? We've got 6 bench Pokemon sounds at the moment. That's 120, plus the 60 on Palkia is 180, plus the choice band is 210. So I don't think we're there yet.
10. He'll need 2 more bench Pokemon.
There's
there is one.
That's what I got. So at the moment, oh no, that's only 230.
230, it's not enough, and Jamie already, I can see the yell banner, that Palkia, no damage on it, so he's going to be happy to play that for the -50 if he wants. Not really worth it if he can't get any more heal, though he'd rather save it for later on. The Avery here reducing that bench, which in turn reduces the Palkia's damage again, making it even harder for a second hit from this Palkia.
Oh, that's heartbreaking, of course. Quick Shooting Inteleon would have done that extra 20 damage. A 5th bench Pokemon would have done that extra 20 damage. An Echoing Horn would have done that extra 20 damage. It's not that Fabien didn't have outs there. And this really seems to be the story of this match. Every time it looks like Fabien's got a way to turn this back into his favor, something goes wrong every time. And now Jamie's actually just going, you know what? I'll just use this new Blissey. We're fine.
We're fine. I also really like this. Jamie is pretty aware that this Blissey's most probably going to go down to an attack or an ability this turn, and obviously gift energy only when knocked out by damage, but still, if this Palkia does hit into the Blissey and knock it out, Jamie's going to get 2 extra cards, drawing him into more stuff. Is that a knockout? Oh, yeah, we did 250. 250 was the maximum HP, 230 last turn. The ability, Jamie does not draw anything from those gift energy.
Does not, and I kind of like the Miltank here, because one of the cool things about this is, did Jamie just put the Miltank up and pass?
No, it's still Fabien's turn. The quick shooting into Blissey to knock it out.
Oh, he did get the quick shooting to get the KO. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, that's lovely. So that's really, really good here. I love the Miltank going up, because now it's your other Inteleon. So now that quick shooting Inteleon's out, it makes it very much less likely Fabien's going to have the other Inteleon. And yes, we were looking for that quick shooting. I missed that Fabien actually had it there for a second. Mid-turn KOs are beautiful. Maybe Fabien can do this, but there are other prizes out there. But Fabien has got to go through this Blissey, and I love this, because and we talked about this, you've got to get the first hit on a Blissey, because if you don't get the first hit on a Blissey, they will get 2 hits on you. When they got that much energy, that's not 2 hits, that's 2 KOs. You can't let that Blissey KO 2 Pokemon for 4 prizes. You will lose.
Yeah, of course. The Blissey here taking a significant amount of damage from the Palkia. It's built up right now. It's looking very threatening, and Jamie's just got to look at his hand in different directions as he go. Healing is at the forefront of everything he wants to do on his next turn. Fabien just drawing some more cards there. The Roxanne will definitely come important at some point during this match, I'm sure. Blissey, not much way to draw extra cards outside of those gift energy and that Greninja. So I think Fabien may use that to try and sneak his way through to this end game and take his last 3 prizes.
Yeah, you've got to think, and I'm so impressed with Fabien's play this weekend. Not just in this game. We've had Fabien on stream, I think, 3 times now. And every time we have seen Fabien just being a phenomenal player. Really careful, really considered, playing to the outs. And a deck like Inteleon Arceus is really, really good for a player as good as Fabien. There's so many decisions to be made with what you take from the Drizzle, what you take from the Inteleon, so many kind of one-offs that you need to try and navigate, saving them all for the best possible usage at the best possible time, and Fabien is doing all of this absolutely beautifully, and almost impossibly, he's putting himself in a decent position here. If he can get a 2-hit kill on this Blissey, and that is a big if, it's always a big if, that Radiant Greninja will just be the last prize, and that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I think that Fabien, as he said, playing his way into some sort of path here. It looked almost hopeless when Jamie came off with those 2 Hyper Potion on early on, but Fabien keeping his head calm, and that Star Portal now, getting those energies down in a few different spots. One on the bench, Palkia V, giving him another fully heal Palkia this time. One already with 2 energies, quite badly damaged, and then one on the Drizzle, maybe to use that Inteleon late game to get through a Miltank if Jamie tries to close it out that way.
Yeah. There's options, and that's what Fabien wanted. Fabien wanted options, right? He had no options a minute ago, and that's really sad. Like, we've seen some games on stream where players like, and I've lost. And that's just a bit sad. It's nice when both players have options and ways to navigate it. So, trying to do the Pokemon then for a minute. We got 7 bench Pokemon, 140. Add the 60 base is 200. Add the 30 from Choice Bout is 230. So I believe that was 230 on Fabien there. So that means that Blissey is going to need to do a bunch of healing. Is it? So if stop me if I'm wrong with this, Benji. We've seen 2 Hyper Potion be played.
Yes.
There's 1 in the prizes.
Yes.
Jamie only has access to 1. We did 230. That'll bring it down to 110, which means Jamie cannot take this Blissey out of range this turn.
There is one slight possibility, but it's unlikely and comes with a big drawback as well. He does have those Team Yell banners, healing 50 from both active Pokemon. So he can use a Hyper Potion, 2 of those Team Yell banners to sort of bring it out of range. But of course, at the same time, he's healing Fabien's Palkia. And there they both are, 2 Team Yell banners coming down, taking 100 damage away from Blissey, and Fabien fully healing that Palkia. But as we know, that Blissey is taking a one-shot anyway. Jamie not taking the full effect of that, and Path to the Peak comes down following those 2 drops. And no, considered taking it back. That Lost City's still there for now.
I mean, Path to the Peak doesn't really do much for you in this game. We've already seen the V-Star power come down. We've already seen the Crobat come down. Fabien's got the abilities he really wanted to use on Pokemon with a rule box. I mean, really, Jamie's kind of turning off his own Greninja here. But he also doesn't want Lost City in play because he doesn't want Fabien to be able to Lost Zone his Pokemon on a KO, which is perfectly understandable. You want to keep them around. I mean, Jamie at the moment doesn't have a second Blissey, so maybe getting another one of those down would be quite nice. But we know that after that Blissey goes down, Fabien is going to be going full bore at that Greninja. That is probably going to be the final prize.
Yeah. Jamie playing Amani now, hoping to disrupt Fabien a little bit with that Path Marnie, the mega duo that is there. It's not Anton Deck, it's not Dick and Dom, it is Marnie Path. And they are doing their thing again. That cape coming down on the Miltank now, taking it a little bit further out of range. And Fabien, of course, waiting to see what he can do on his turn with the cards given by Marnie. Only 4 of them in hand at the minute.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount. I would love to see a cape come down onto the Greninja here because that's Fabien's obvious last prize, and I've not sat and done the maths, but maybe there's an opportunity to get that Greninja out of range because we already see the Palkia's not going to get the Miltank because it's not allowed. So I like getting the protection onto that Greninja, try and save it from being one-hit KO'd. As it stands at the moment, speaking of one-hit KOs, that Palkia may have been completely healed up, but now it's completely knocked out. Jamie goes down to 3 prizes remaining. Fabien has 3 prizes remaining. Wants to KO that Blissey as it stands at the moment. Now, do we know how much is on the Blissey? I think Fabien did 230, and then Jamie healed 100. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that would mean there'd be 130 on there. So in theory, Fabien here can, well, actually just attach an energy to Palkia and KO.
Yeah, that should be able to be done there. 200 plus the 130 still on it. That should be correct maths. Of course, 3 energy, and I don't believe that attack is able to be used on the following turn then as well. So Fabien would limit his options then to be able to take the final KO, but as you said, that Greninja being the obvious one on the bench, he could take that knockout in a number of different ways.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks at the moment like we're up to 180, and it is just enough for a KO, so it must have been 130. Add the 180 is 310. That is enough to get a KO. And
Jamie drawing those 3 cards off the gift energy as well. The one perk of having that in that, instead of the draw up to 7, this lucky energy does, the gift energy. No, the gift energy is draw up to 7. Instead of that, you have this, which gets you 1 card for each energy on the Blissey.
And that does mean that you can potentially, if you get all 4 on there, get KO'd. That's drawing you 4 extra cards, and it means you can go above that hand size restriction of 7. So it's not a bad idea at all. I like this, and we do see a double turbo on the mill tank here. So I believe is this going to be enough? We need to do, oh no, we need to do 140. No, we're miles away. No, Miltank is not getting this KO here.
Miltank not getting the KO, and as well, Fabien, if this is the attacker that is chosen to be used by Jamie, all Fabien will need is a Shady Dealings Inteleon, attaching energy, Aqua Bullet will be able to finish off our game for us.
Yeah, that's going to be the end here. Miltank does 10 plus 20 for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. 4 bench Pokemon means you're doing 90. Minus the 20 for the double turbo means you're only doing 70. You need to do 140, so you're miles away from getting this KO. And even if Jamie gets the KO, there's still 1 prize remaining. Fabien just needs a Pokemon catcher. It's not Pokemon catcher. We're not in that form. It's out, but it's a coin flip. It doesn't see a huge amount of play. It's a rogue thing nowadays. Boss's orders. Or indeed a double cross switcher that will get that Greninja, get the KO nice and easily. That Miltank is a pain. Gusting would be the way to do it.
Of course, Gusting. As I said, though, also just a Shady Dealings Inteleon and an attach. It's already got damage on it. 120 damage from Aqua Bullet would be able to close out this game for Fabien. Plenty of options here. He set himself well. 4-hit, a quick ball, discarding that Radiant Greninja. Path is down. That no longer any use to Fabien. Not able to bump that Stadium currently. What's he going to go for? Or just looking through what his odds are of being able to hit any sort of Gust or the Inteleon here.
Yeah, either would do. Energy Inteleon, you've already got enough energy to retreat the Palkia. So Energy Inteleon wins the game. Boss's Orders wins the game. Double Cross Switcher wins the game. There are a lot of options available for Fabien. The question is, which one is he actually going to have access to here? We do have an Echoing Horn, which is quite nice just for annoying jet. Did we not see anything?
And Fabien passes over to Jamie, not the turn he wanted to see. And now that Miltank, that 70 damage times 2 does equal that 140 that Jamie needed to do last turn. Fabien may be confident that he's got 1 more turn to stay in this, wants to guarantee the odds of getting the things he needs. An attachment to that Blissey, capture energy. Not a lot left in deck for Jamie either. Only 3 cards. He's going to have to try and close this out quickly or he'll deck out.
I think it only actually did 50 last turn. It's definitely only doing 50 this turn. 10 plus the 60 for the free bench Pokemon is 17, minus the 20 for the double turbo energy.
50.
So we're not going to be getting a KO here, but there will be a KO next turn. And I feel fairly confident, right? If this Blissey can take a KO, so if the Miltank can take a KO, then Jamie's in a much better position. But then again, Fabien still wins on an Energy Palkia V-Star Gusting. Oh, I like this. This is the kind of play I've been asking Jamie to be doing all game. We are gusting up the Drizzle. We are not actually getting a KO here, but we are building this up. Oh, but we're not getting a KO. Jamie still needs 2 KOs to win the game. And that Drizzle, I'm pretty sure, has a retreat cost of 1, so it's not going to be stuck in the active. So Fabien is still... Well, actually, no. Gusting is definitely needed now. There is the energy. There is the Palkia V-Star. Unfortunately, the Inteleon can KO the Miltank, but you'd still need Gusting, so that's kind of irrelevant. We are bringing up the undamaged Palkia, and Fabien really playing to his outs here. Now he's got 2 potential Palkia. If he grabs a Boss's Orders or a double cross switcher at any time before they both go down, then that will be a win for Fabien. Jamie there didn't manage to get a KO on the Drizzle, and that's a really big deal.
Yeah, I think just to correct myself, just when we were saying that the Inteleon isn't out for Fabien, but I realize a lot of the decks we've been seeing today are playing 2 Shady Dealings Inteleon, 1 Chilling Rain. However, Fabien just a 1-1 line, and obviously we saw that rare candy for the Inteleon early on in this game to get through that Miltank, so that's no longer an option for him.
No, unfortunately not. So, I mean, it really is down to gusting, and this is why Dominic's deck with the Regigigas was so surprising with the no gusting, because how many times have we been here where, oh yeah, no, boss's orders for the win? Because otherwise stuff like this happens. Your opponent whacks a giant Blissey in front of you, and they're like, ha, you can't knock it out. So, I mean, an escape rope here would be brilliant. It's not going to happen. Or a boss's orders or something along those lines. As it stands, oh, Jamie gets a hyper potion, the last one. Well, last one available,
yeah,
you know, is one in the prizes.
Available, one in the prizes. And the Cheron to pick up that mill tank, getting the cape back down on the Blissey, taking it up to 300, minus that damage on it. It's creating another threat here, and Fabien needs to figure out a way. Jamie's bench really, really small at the minute as well. That Palkia not going to be able to do enough damage next turn by the looks of things. And Blissey swinging again, and it's going to be attaching 3 special energy from the discard. And it's quite important here that Jamie doesn't attach any of those lucky energy. If he was to draw any more cards from his deck on this hit, he would deck himself out.
And also, if it got KO'd, Fabien would have taken all his prizes and won the game.
Yeah, of course.
But certainly at this stage, powerful colourless energy and double turbo energy, those are the energies that really boost up the damage that Blissey is doing here. They have to be the priorities. So Fabien's got 2 very heavily damaged Palkia, still wins a game on a boss's orders. That's really important to note. Or a Drizzile for a boss's orders, or an Inteleon for a boss's orders. There's so many outs in Fabien's deck, but he's not drawing them. And actually, that path to the peak might have ended up being really big, because we saw Fabien get rid of his Radiant Greninja knowing he couldn't use it because of that path to the peak. And actually, there was a chance that Fabien could have used that to draw what he needed to close out this game.
Yeah, definitely. That Palkia V coming down to get that V-Star's maximum damage output from a full bench currently. Jamie replacing that mill tank down with a DTE on it, and it's going to come into the active now, be able to do a maximum amount of damage. That is 110 from Route, which should be able to clean off this Palkia. Instead, it's a boss bringing up the other Palkia, and instead choosing to knock out that.
Yeah, not a bad idea at all. Getting that KO, getting those 2 prizes, always a good thing. And if you can do it with Mill Tank, that is even better. It doesn't really matter in terms of the prize map, because Fabien only needs to take 1 prize to win. But Fabien doesn't have a good answer to that Mill Tank.
And the Drizzile comes down here. It's the cross switcher. Is the other half in
yes,
hand?
of course
it is. The echoing horn here, getting out exactly what Fabien needs. And then the double cross switcher being able to knock out. And it is game 2 to Fabien. And what a roller coaster ride that was. Jamie at the start looked like there was nothing going on, and Fabien pulling ahead. And then the tables turn, that double hyper potion turn again working in Jamie's favor. And then, of course, Fabien playing his time, taking his time, timing it properly, able to pull it out.
Yeah, that was very well played. I've been really impressed by Fabien for this entire tournament. Jamie played that really, really well, made sure to try and use those Hyper Potion at the right time, switched into Miltank when it was preferable to do so, tried to manipulate the right Pokemon at the right time. There was a lot Jamie did there to increase his chances of winning, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And now we're in an interesting situation where we might not even have enough time to finish in our 75 minutes best of 3. Although actually, let's bring attention to what we see at the bottom of the screen. Nico Alabas has advanced to top 4 by defeating Martin de Sombre. So we've already got at least 1 person in top 4.
And that means that is 1 Giratina in top 4 as well. So Europe is starting to make a little claim that Giratina's doing slightly better than it has in the American Regional so far. And can it take home that crown? We mentioned that right at the start of the stream this weekend. And hopefully it can live up to what we said.
Yeah, that'd be all right. I mean, I have no real love for Giratina one way or the other, but I do like to see the metagame changing. So, give me a win for Blissey. That'd be brilliant. That's something no one saw coming this weekend.
That is definitely not what I saw coming this weekend.
Nah, the numbers don't support it. Like, if a deck is expected to win a regional, a lot of people play it. Oh, we do have a cross switcher and that one-of rare candy prize for Fabien. We do have a prized hyper potion for Jamie, but it is important to note that it is one of the bottom 2 prizes. Assuming Jamie takes it in the order we would expect it to, you don't want Cheron's Care or Hyper Potion prize, but they should be picked up pretty quickly.
Yeah, of course. That's been a Hyper Potion all 3 games. Now the 4 count, making it quite likely to be prized. However, Jamie will come into that a lot sooner than last time. Obviously wasn't able to get the 4th Hyper Potion last game to really heal his Blissey completely from Palkia. Only been able to use 2 of those Team Yell Towels on 1 turn. But the capture energy to start, not a bad one for Jamie. Maybe going for the Greninja here, drawing himself some more cards, but another Blissey would not be too bad either.
No, I think you're right about the Greninja. It has to be Greninja. You need a second Blissey, but you know, there's no real turn 1 attacking plan for this Palkia deck. It doesn't have a real way to damage on turn 1. Turn 1 is very much a setup turn. So you know you're not being attacked turn 1. You know realistically it's turn 3 before you're getting KO'd. So for that reason, you can afford to just chill back a little bit, start building up with your Greninja, and just taking a little more time against other decks that can hit a lot faster. You know, Giratina's really threatening a turn 2 KO, but here you've got a little bit more time.
Yeah, that Greninja using conceal cards, discarding that DTE, meaning that will be in there for Blissey to charge up on the following turn, but just the capture for now. And Jamie passing over to Fabien. Not as strong of a first turn as we've seen from either player in both of these games. And Fabien's going to see if he can get a much better one, start establishing these Palkias. And as he said, it's a setup turn. Can he get all of the building blocks down to start building on top of it?
That would be nice. I mean, we've got a Palkia, we've got a Quick Ball. Getting rid of that Path to the Peak nice and early. Of course, Path to the Peak doesn't really do much to Jamie. It stops Blissey removing special conditions, but Fabien doesn't use special conditions, so who really cares? Whereas it did actually hurt Fabien quite a bit in that previous game.
Yeah, the Quick Ball, eyeing up the Crobat by the looks. Maybe Fabian's hand not the strongest at the minute. He's going to need to see a little bit more before he feels he can set up correctly. He's going to have to get a good start here. It's so important because the second this Blissey starts attacking, Ross, you said it before, you have to get the first attack in on the Blissey. If it starts doing significant damage to you first, more than likely it's going to overrun.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet Jamie's won 10 matches today, which means presumably like 20 individual games. So what that means is there's going to be a couple of games today or yesterday where Jamie's just had one Blissey just going through, romping for the 6 prizes and going, hey, look, I took 6 prizes and won. There's almost certainly a couple of games Jamie's done that. Your goal as the opponent is to try and stop that happening. We do see a capture energy actually coming down for Fabien here. Goes and gets that Greninja. So both players have attached the capture energies that are active and gone and searched the Radiant Greninja. I like the symmetry.
I do like the symmetry, but I don't like the fact that this probably means both of our players' hands aren't the best. Fabien already opting here to go for the Crobat. He's thinning his hand now, cross-switch it into the Greninja, thinning it right down for this Crobat to be able to draw 5 by the looks here, unless there's something behind the boss. And that is what we see. And he's really hoping to see some of those VIP passes, perhaps some Sobbles on their own. One of them down already, and Irida is a great way to finish off this turn.
Yeah, turn 1 Irida is absolutely great. There's an argument here. You don't need the VIP pass because you've got the basics you want. And we do see that for Fabien. We've got that, obviously, Capacious Bucket for 2 energy. That should be kind of a given by now. And we've got that Drizzle for next turn. Did get punished by Amani in game 1, but it's not the biggest punish in the world. So either you've got that Drizzle down or your opponent's giving you a new hand. So it's not too bad. You've got an energy to discard with that Giratina should you wish to do so, which you probably do. Yeah, there we go. Can't attach. But oh, we do have a second Palkia. That is not bad. As an argument to bench it. Instead, we've got a Quick Ball, which not going to be for a Palkia. It's probably going to be for a Sobble.
I would imagine a Sobble. Having multiple of those down really allowed Fabien to access his deck as well as getting some of those quick shootings down. Some of that mass ended up being really key on Jamie's Pokemon, forced him to use some of those Team Yell Towels and use his Hyper Potions a little bit earlier as well. So the Greninja here, discarding that water, and as we know, water in the discard is exactly what Fabien wants. Both players actually want that. There's a lot of symmetry again in that, and we pass over to Jamie,
who does, again, discard an energy with that Greninja. Draw 2 cards. Do we have a pivoting option here? That's the one thing Jamie needs.
Escape rope just now off the concealed cards, Ross.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's going to be an awkward situation. You know when you're Palkia to take the first hit, but that's a powerful colourless energy on Blissey, correct?
No, that's a capture, but there is a powerful in hand, however.
Yeah, so if he attaches, in fact, any energy, that will put you up to 70. So I think Fabien here, this is what I would have done. You put the Crobat active, but now you're taking a bunch of damage on your Crobat. Oh, it doesn't even matter.
Anyway, we've seen Jamie do that twice in this game. The boss jumping that Sobble in, and you said that magic 70, able to knock out the Sobble and jump Jamie ahead early on in this game.
Yeah, that is beautiful, that is. And I've said it a couple of times, I'm going to say it again. I love here when Jamie is able to take KOs on those little Pokemon while building the energy up. The only downside here is Fabien could potentially get a KO on that Blissey. It's not really what you're... Sorry, not a KO, but the first hit to lead to a 2-hit KO is what I'm really looking for here. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do. You've got the KO, you're building it up, and let's face it, you're keeping a very low bench. You know you're not getting KO'd. We've got a bunch of healing, and with an undamaged Palkia, those Team Yaotao's become really good cards. So, yeah, there's a decent chance here that Jamie can take a hit, heal, and roll.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing for Fabien that is upsetting here, the rare candy is in the prizes. There is a world, Ross, where you are correct. The Palkia definitely could take a knockout on the Blissey. That rare candy able to get him into the quick shooting Inteleon. 20 damage, full bench choice belt, but obviously Jamie, no bench Pokemon. And it just goes to show the strength of Blissey, being able to keep his bench small. It stops Palkia from being able to reach those upper echelons of its damage.
Yeah, I think he would be 20 short here. I think we would have so we'd have 7 bench Pokemon. No, you're right, that would we'd have 6 bench Pokemon. 120 plus a 60 base is 180 plus choice bout is 210. Quick shooting would do 230 and
so
you need to do 250.
Short.
Well, an Echoing Horn could potentially do it if there's a Pokemon in the discard pile. But with no rare candy, this is all a moot point. Fabien's going to be able to get significant damage. Had Fabien been able to get a big KO with no real other Pokemon on the bench other than Greninja, that would be big. As it is, we do see, I want to say 180 here, which is a decent amount of damage, but it's not enough.
And the Hyper Potion already cancelling that out. 120 all the way down to 160 to 60 from that. And then was the towel about to come down? Instead, the Avery forcing Fabien to discard some of those Pokemon. And again, highlighting that gets rid of some of Palkia's damage. 40 damage in total discarded there by Avery. And Jamie getting 3 more cards. And the Team Yell towel comes down and Blissey all the way down to 10 HP again. Yeah,
10 damage. Yeah, I love this. This is amazing. There was a little bonus for Fabien there, being able to drop that Crobat off of the field. You don't really need that Crobat there anymore. There's other stuff you can do instead. So I didn't mind that at all. That was quite nice. And we do now, almost impossibly, need to start worrying about the clock. There's 13 minutes remaining, which sounds like a lot, but we've had 1 prize taken in Game 3. We're an hour into this game. We've got 13 minutes remaining. If these games, as long as the first 2, I don't think we're going to finish here. And then it's not about who can take all 6 prizes. It's who can jump out to a lead.
Yeah, and jumping out to a lead is something that both these players are able to do. Obviously, Palkia, lots of ways it can gust around. Maybe not being able to go through the Blissey in 1 hit, but can get through the Greninja if all he needs is 1 prize to jump into the lead to win that game in sudden death. But more importantly, that Blissey, the one-shot potential, he can take a prize anywhere on the board as long as the energy's there to do so.
Yeah, which is always a nice bonus when you can do that. So, I mean, here, we're back where we've been a lot for both players throughout this match. We've got 2 big Pokemon. There's not really much damage on either, and it's really trying to manipulate yourself to be the first person to get that 2 prize KO. And I love how Fabien is keeping Jamie in check. We're on Game 3, and at no point has Jamie really been able to build up 1 giant Blissey and roll. Fabien has basically kept him honest, I suppose is the phrase I'm looking for here. Made it so that Jamie's poking away, but never really doing a huge amount of damage. Now, we do see
I think it's 150.
Looks like 150 coming down on there. And that's fine, but now if Fabien does a big damage, then Jamie is forced to either heal or give up the Blissey in response. And Jamie needs to get something on the bench here.
Yeah, definitely. We need to see a second Blissey or a Miltank just to be able to stall that out a little bit. There is, however, a Shady Dealings Inteleon down that can have a second energy just to get through that Miltank unless it finds itself a Cape Terminus. So Fabien's board looking a little bit better right now. Obviously, that Blissey looking a bit more threatening, but it is Jamie's only threat right now. And
yeah.
Fabien goes back into deck. He gets that Capacious Bucket, Water Energies, and that Evo Incense. I would say grabbing a Drizzile, being able to go back in and find another trainer card, advancing his board once again.
Yeah, we do have comfort. Oh, wait, no, we've done that one. So we did that top 4 game. We told you that one. Here we do have that that Evolution Incense going to be going in.
Evolution Incense.
Oh, no, we've got a level ball coming down for a Sobble here. So we got the Drizzle. I think it was Evolution Incense for the Drizzle and then a level ball for a Sobble, setting yourself up for the future, having his Drizzle ready to evolve into Inteleon. Now we see the Marnie. I was a bit confused a minute ago when that Marnie was hanging around, but Fabien there kind of slowed it down a bit and went, no, I want to do a couple of things, and then I want to go and get the Marnie. So Fabien building up the bench there, building up those options. I like having a Sobble ready to evolve and a Drizzle ready to evolve, putting your opponent down to a low hand size. And this is one of those situations where Fabien is essentially going to be attacking, knowing you're giving up the Palkia, but you've got one sitting on the bench. It's already a V-Star. It's already got 2 energy. It is completely 100% ready to go. And this is Fabien fingers crossing time. If Jamie whiffs the healing, this is going to be huge for Fabien. Jamie really needs a Hyper Potion and a Blissey here.
Yeah, well, there's the quick ball, so maybe discarding a Miltank, so I'd imagine the Blissey is definitely going to be the pick here. And yeah, highlighting what you said, Ross, Fabian's side of the board, I really like the fact that he Marnied, shuffling his hand, maybe giving himself a smaller hand size than he had before, but also disrupting Jamie and having that Drizzle ready to evolve into Inteleon if he wants to scoop up the other one. And of course, the Sobble ready to evolve into a Drizzle as well. So plenty of options for Fabien to get out of a hand off the back of that Marnie. And the Avery, once again, forcing Fabien to discard that Sobble he just put down, giving him one less option on the following turn.
Yeah, this is always a good thing. You want lots of options for yourself. You don't want any options for your opponent, making him discard that Sobble off the bench with Avery. And that had to be the option. That had to be the one you went for. You need your backup Palkia. You need your Inteleon waiting for a Miltank. And that Drizzle can turn into an Inteleon or be scoop up netted. So it did have to be the Sobble getting discarded. Fabien didn't really think about it very long, but it's still very awkward. Now, we are down to 9 minutes remaining. We've still only had 1 prize taken. It does look like Jamie is going to take another 2 here. So we might just about have enough time to finish out this game. It's going to be fairly close one way or the other, but I'm liking the way both players are approaching this. And it's almost like we've been through 2 games, and now it's like, oh, it's game 3. So Fabian's like, I know how to play this matchup. And Jamie, I'll be honest with you, Jamie's probably played this matchup a couple times throughout the event.
A couple times, I would imagine. But Jamie as well, I really like that both these players are stuck to their game plan as well. We sort of saw a game earlier where we saw people adapting to certain things they did in other games and changing the way that they use the Giratina or their Lost Box in the last match we casted together. However, now, Jamie, Fabien, knowing what they need to do, knowing the game plan and sticking to it for the most effective combos possible. And we're staying with Jamie here, we're staying with Fabien here. Obviously, Blissey taking those extra 2 prizes. At the minute, looking at the clock, Ross, Jamie is ahead by 2 prizes right now. This Palkia is going to want to take the knockout on the Blissey on the other side of the board.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's absolutely crucial. Basically, if this Blissey goes down this turn, then Fabian's got a decent chance here. If this Blissey survives, it's going to take another 2 prizes. Jamie's going to go down to 1 prize remaining. There are single prize Pokemon on Fabian's side of the field. Blissey needs a lot less to get the KO on them. And I think at that stage, this game is as good as over. Fabien needs to keep Jamie in check, needs to get a KO onto that Blissey, which does seem like it might be relevant. And hey, we've just gotten a Lost Zone counter coming up.
Got a Lost Zone 2, that is right. And of course, we see the Roxanne as well. Jamie Fabien trying to shut Jamie out of this game. Only 2 cards. And of course, for this Blissey deck, unless that Greninja can discard any energy with conceal cards, he's got no other way to draw cards during the turn. But I think I do see a capture energy in there at the very least. And a quick shooting to the bench Blissey and Subspace Swell for the knockout.
Yeah, we do see those gift energy coming in as, well, actually, no, 1 of them, but it's 1 more card. It's 1 card you didn't have a minute ago. You've got that Greninja to draw potentially as well. So we've got a Cape of Toughness. We do have a 1 energy, so you can at least get an attack off here. And that is that capture energy. So you can go and search for a Pokemon. And there was a Blissey in hand, so you've got to think this is going to be a Miltank, or it might just be a deck search. This might just be Jamie taking advantage of going for the deck. Can search out a Blissey. I mean, there is a Blissey in hand, but there is an argument here that you search out a Blissey with capture energy, because if you're struggling for draw and you don't have a huge amount going on, then taking a Blissey out of the deck just gives you one less bad draw, so that's going to increase your chances of drawing good cards you actually want.
Yeah, in all card games, odds are one of the biggest things in the game. You need to increase them whenever you can get extra cards out the deck to give you an advantageous hand, or if you're drawing off a Greninja or off a top deck or off a supporter, you really need to minimize those odds of you missing. And Jamie opting not to do that, however, I think a very good choice if he had, but as he said, a Blissey in hand already. He's probably already eyed that up to come down. But the capture energy attached to the active Blissey this turn, ready to attack and attach those 3 from the discard instead of opting to discard it with Greninja.
Yeah, not bad at all here. Of course, you need, as much as it's nice to draw cards, you need energy to attack. So just a little bit of a poke there, not a huge amount of damage. Is that 60? No, 40. So you've got 40 damage being done. I see it was the capture energy. Now we get Melanie onto the bench Palkia, and you can see Fabien here seems to have picked up his pace of play, kind of knowing there's only 5 minutes remaining. We need to get a result here. And, oh, that was a very fast turn from Fabien there. Just gets the energy. Oh, wait, no. Ah, that was a quick shooting. There we go. So the quick shooting did put 20 on. Fabien there's got 4 Pokemon on the bench. So we're talking about 160 at the moment in terms of what the Palkia is doing. Jamie, of course, has had now access potentially to all of those Hyper Potion. So how many has he used so far in this game?
He hasn't used any so
That's
far.
what, okay, I just wanted you to double check that. I don't remember him using any. So, and there is one in hand. Is there one in hand?
I don't know if I could see one in hand.
Oh, there's definitely one in hand now.
There's definitely one there now. And obviously this Blissey only just in scary places of damage.
There was one in hand. So yes, there are 2 in hand now. I thought there were. So this is huge. So you play that down. And then you get a Hyper Potion, double Hyper Potion, getting rid of both the double Turbo Energy. And now you're only doing 100 damage plus any from any powerful colorless energy. But there's not going to be a KO on the Palkia. But Jamie is more worried about getting KO'd than Fabien is. Because Jamie takes so long to build up those Blissey. So it's not a KO, but it means that Palkia is not going to take much to be KO'd next turn, and now Jamie has got to be feeling pretty good about this.
Yeah, I think he's feeling good about the position of damage on the Palkia, and also he's currently ahead on the prize of the clock running down. However, Ross, if you look at his hand right now, only 2 Blissey and a Cape of Toughness in there. Not a lot going on for if this Blissey does go down. He's going to need to hit something either off those lucky energy draws. Only 1, though, I think, attached right now. So 1 lucky energy draw and a top deck is really going to have to try and save him here. So Fabien just needs to do the business, continue to apply the pressure. That Irido will start him off by getting him that crucial choice band for that extra damage, and continue to push Jamie into a corner. Fabien understands he hasn't got a lot of time left and wants to close this out, making sure he wins 2-1.
Yeah, we can do with a full bench and the quick shooting, I believe, and a choice belt. I believe we'd be up to 230. Choice belt is in hand. We just saw it be selected from the Irido here. So I'm trying to see, is there 60 on the Blissey? Because if there's 60, that would mean the Blissey would survive with 10 HP remaining, which would be heartbreaking for Fabien here. Have we seen an Echoing Horn come out from Fabien this turn?
We have not seen an Echoing Horn
and
so
it's
far.
not prized. Does Fabien have access to the Echoing Horn and do need a 5th bench Pokemon as well, or else things are going to get a lot more difficult here? Does not look like it, so we see decent damage from Fabien. And now we've got 2.5 minutes remaining in this game. Oh, and Jamie has gone and drawn a Hyper Potion. That is not going to be fun. And you see just the shake of the head, the roll of the eyes from Fabien there going, come on. You've just did a double last turn and a single this turn. How am I supposed to deal with all this much damage?
I mean, Jamie definitely being an irritant right now for Fabien. Fabien's doing all that he can to try and close out this game, and Jamie just running it down as well, making it as awkward as possible. This Blissey being able to knock out this Palkia V-Star, taking him down to 1 prize left as well. Meaning there's a couple of different ways Jamie can close out this game. Obviously nothing right now on Fabien's board of low enough HP, but a Gust and maybe trapping some of the active, like that quick shooting Inteleon for 1 prize later on the game, may be an option. But as I said before, Jamie's hand's still not looking great. Not a lot in there, not a lot of answers.
No, gets a KO there, does really have the prize lead here. For anyone that's wondering, we do have obviously ties in Swiss. We don't have ties in Top Cup. The way it essentially works is you finish off and you have your +3 turns, And then at the end of those +3 turns, you look to see who is, obviously if anybody reaches a win condition, they win. Otherwise, who is ahead on prizes at the end of +3 turns. If it's tied on prizes, it's their next prize remaining. So it will be a rush to just take that final prize to get yourself through to the top 4 of this Lille Regional Championships. We got a minute and a half remaining. I mean, Fabien has to get a KO here or else the game is just over. And Jamie's going to be moving on to top 4 with this fantastic Blissey deck.
And at the minute, it doesn't look like Fabian's got everything he needs. He's looking through his deck. It doesn't look like there's any basics left there to get any extra damage. This Pelkia only doing 140 right now. It's not looking good. 120, that is. So not looking good. It's not going to be able to KO that Blissey. 300 HP with that Cape of Toughness, with the damage left over from that Hyper Potion as well. That Choice Band making it now slightly more. Pelkia, the Lost City, taking those Pelkias into the Lost Zone, and not that Lost Zone counter now. Only relevant due to those being discarded, but they are there and unable to be returned to Fabian's deck. We're just waiting here to see what Fabien chooses to do. There's not a lot of time left. He wants as many turns as possible as well, doesn't he, Ross, after time is done? And the Echoing Horn play that you mentioned, looking for anything. The Miltank, the only option which this Pelkia isn't going to be able to hit anyway.
No, I mean, the Avery is coming in really big for Jamie here. Because it's not just seeing getting rid of Pokemon now, but we keep seeing Fabien here's got a bench space, a bench size of 3. You want 5. Fabian's literally out of basic Pokemon. Jamie's done such a good job of getting these basic Pokemon off the field. Fabian's just out of basic Pokemon.
Of course, and Fabien just doing the quick shooting of that Blissey, soften it up a little bit, but I think he knows here the writing is on the wall. It's not spelling anything fortunate for him. This Pelkia doesn't look like he's going to be able to take the knockout this turn. Quick ball again, just playing out his hand. Picking it up, putting that Soul back down. He's going to hope to be able to play a Drizzle next turn if the game's still going. The quick shooting. And there it is. Jamie knew that Fabien wasn't going to be able to take a knockout that turn. Fabien did everything he can, showed us what he could do there with what's left in his hand, but it just wasn't enough. That Pelkia, as you said, Jamie shrinking that bench every single time that Fabien was able to build it up, reducing that damage. And once again, Pelkia's biggest weakness, its damage cap, has come back to bite it.
Yeah, and it's a great run for Fabien all the way into top 8. Congratulations to Fabien. Great tournament, great player. You know, we've had interviews with him. We've had him on stream a few times. That was an absolute joy to have Fabien this weekend. Great top 8 finish. But Jamie, I mean, you know, British lad done good. Coming in with Miltank, a deck that Miltank is one of those fun decks that people. It's not necessarily on your testing list. And when I say that, I don't mean you never test against it. I mean, you play a game or two, but in reality, you're testing against Palkia, against Giratina, against Lost Box, against Regis. You're not really focusing on that Miltank, that Miltank Blissey matchup. And I don't think any testing would have made a huge difference there.
I think you're in a position when it comes to decks like Miltank Blissey, you hope not to see it more than once or at all during a tournament. But on top of that, you maybe put an answer in your deck and you're like, okay, hopefully this helps. But as you said, you're not really going to spend a lot of time. Far more prevalent things in the format for you to be spending your time with. We've got to talk about the way Jamie handled that last game. He did not have the best of starts at all. Fabien was able to pull ahead. And once again, those double Hyper Potion turns, not only are they hyper, they are hype for us. How great were they to see?
Oh, I love it. I love seeing that. There are certain things. Every great deck, every good deck has a couple of things that put it over the top. Blissey's damage is really good. Blissey's HP is really good. But it's really existing in the format at the same time as things like Cape of Toughness to give it that extra 50 HP and Hyper Potion to heal 120. And it's those extra cards. Blissey alone is good, but it's these extra cards. And there are so many. This is what fascinates me as a fan of the Pokemon TCG. How many cards out there are 1 or 2 cards being released from being absolutely amazing? We've seen in Mewtwo V Union that Morpeko from Rebel Clash has suddenly become good, or at least viable in that particular deck. We've seen cards like, you know, that Cape of Toughness, we've seen lots and lots, but it only really exists now in that Blissey deck. And Hyper Potion isn't really a good deck except a good card, except in a Blissey deck, and that's what's so fun about this. It's those extra cards that turn a good card into a great card.
Yeah, and as you said, there are so many cards, 1 or 2 away from being really good, but there is definitely going to be one person who can tell us all about how good those cards are and how he overcame Fabien in top 8. We're here with the winners interview right after this short break.
No, that shouldn't it?
You should. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lille Regional Championships. My name is Ross Gilbert, and I am joined by Jamie Frankland. You have just gone and put yourself into the top 4 of the Regional Championships. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Very cool.
Did you expect this coming in? I mean, was this a goal for you? What was your goal coming into the tournament?
My goal probably was top 41, which is a bit of a weird number, but Eric Wu, I think it was, got 42nd, so I just wanted to be the best Blissey. But that was the goal.
So you saw an American player get 42nd with Blissey, and you're like, right, let's go and get 30. Well, you're beating him by a mile at this stage. Not even close. You're in the top 4. I mean, and not just in the top 4, you've just taken down a really good opponent. Yeah. Fabien was one of the players all this weekend. We've had him on stream 3 times, playing amazingly. Great player. And, you know, local player, one of really the favourites it looked like for the tournament. Does it make a difference when you beat a player of that calibre?
To be honest, I don't know many pro players. I didn't know he was a pro. I don't know anyone. I know Todd, I know Robin Schultz, and that's about it.
I mean, that can be an advantage, though, because there's no nerves coming in. I can assure you that Fabien is a phenomenal player. You just took down one of the players we were really looking at, a player we all know, and a local player. So, okay. You wanted to be the best Blissey player coming in. Why would you bring Blissey to a regional championship?
Because I am crazy. Yeah, that's about it. Please don't tech for Blissey. Stop playing Tina. Blissey's not good.
Okay, so we said stop playing Tina. Is that you're referring to your Well, explain it to me. Explain it to me.
Tina is an impossible matchup for Blissey. It is 100-0. You might as well go get a lunch break. It is horrible. So please, everyone, stop playing Tina. Blissey is bad.
You're talking about Giratina V-Star?
Yes.
Oh, you know there were like 3 of them in Top Cut, right? I'm not joking with you here. I'm pretty sure there were 3. I'm pretty sure there were 3 Giratina in Top Cut, and then 3 Water Decks and a Blissey and a Mew.
When even mark Tina?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember that stuff. I can't keep all 8 deck lists in my head at once. That's way too much. But yeah, obviously, I'm assuming you're referring to the V-Star power that just gets an instant 1-hit KO, regardless of your Fighting Fury bout, your giant HP, how much energy, and...
Betty Blissey's up.
Okay. So let's take that for a second, right? You brought Blissey to a tournament. It's a fringe deck. It's a good deck. You mentioned Eric Wu got 42nd in a US regional. It's a fringe deck. But you're telling me you take a hard loss to Giratina, which is one of the most played decks of the weekend.
Yep.
How do you make the choice to bring Blissey here, bearing in mind, you've said yourself you're taking in your words, 100-0 matchup against one of the most popular decks in the format?
There's not really a good answer to that. The answer, I guess, would be, well, if you look at day 2, only 10% of the room was Tina. I hit 1 Tina in day 2, and that beat me, because in like 6 minutes, double donked me. Nothing you can do. So I went 4-1 in day 2, but then you just beat everything else. Okay,
and see, that was what I was getting at. I don't want to sound mean. I apologise if I sound mean. I just want to understand the thought process. But I like that. It beats everything else. And sometimes that's what you need to do really well in a regional championship. Yeah. It's going to be everything but this one matchup. Cross me fingers, don't play against it.
And if you have a terrible matchup like that, take all the text for it out and just go, it's a loss.
Okay, it's a refreshing attitude. It's not one we hear all the time, but it's something I've done myself. I've gone into tournaments taking hard losses to decks which are moderately well played, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's really working for you here. Congratulations on your top 4 finish at least, but you aren't done yet. You've got a top 4. I suppose, fingers crossed it's not Giratina.
If it's Tina, I think I'm done.
Okay, I'm in that house that's on the stream. If you're playing Giratina on stream, I think we might go for the other top 4 game.
It'd be a quick stream. You could stream us both, to be honest.
Well, thank you very much for the conversation. And congratulations on top 4. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a nice little break. But we're going to be back really shortly because we've got a top 4 to play.